Hello, friends. Well, this is one of the most memorable episodes of Blake 7 from my youth, so let's see how well my memory serves me and if it's actually as good as I remember it being. Well, right off the bat, we've got our first episode that was not written by Terry Nation! At last, the end of the mediocre scripts! Now, I thoroughly recognize that might not be totally fair, but much like Gene Roddenberry, Terry Nation's better when he's not working by himself and has somebody else writing other episodes. We open on the space station, Space City, and on our main antagonist for the episode, Largo. He's in the midst of a dispute with two of the addicts that he controls, since they were ordered to rob a house but refused to kill the guy who lived there, saying that was not part of their original deal.
The deal was whatever I say it was.
Apparently, Largo graduated from the Darth Vader School of Negotiating. He offers them the drug that they're in search of, named Shadow. Unfortunately for Largo, one of the two drug addicts isn't actually an addict, and this has all been a setup to rob him blind, as well as covering their escape by playing a recording of him continuing to threaten to shoot Largo if he even moves, to buy themselves some time to get off of Space City. So Blake and the Liberator have come here in search of the Terra Nostra, the criminal organization that pretty much runs everything outside of the control of the Federation. There's an open secret in the galaxy that they're the ones that build and run Space City. Accurate to Avon's prediction earlier, Blake's planning on using the vast wealth that the Liberator contains to try and buy their cooperation in order to mount a growing campaign to take down the Federation, even if that doesn't sit well with some of the crew. Think, Gan. Think what they've got. Men, material, information. Think what we could do with a fraction of the resources they control. You think, Blake. Think what it is they actually control. Everything dirty, degrading, and cruel on every civilized planet. Earth's all I'm interested in. Villa's all for this plan because he's always wanted to visit Space City. Fortunately, though, Blake is smart enough to recognize that this is a bit like letting Donald Trump wander around backstage at the Miss America pageant. Yeah, I said it. But plans on keeping Villa there to work the teleporter controls, while Blake, Avon, Gan, and Jenna teleport over to Space City. Back over with the two drug addicts, we learn what happens if you don't get regular doses of Shadow, as it's killed their brother, Petey. Yeah, that's kind of a really bad design flaw if your drug kills your addicts if they don't get enough of it, but I guess it does keep your customer base pretty loyal. Unfortunately, Largo finally figured out where they were and has sent one of his henchmen to retrieve them. Back over on Liberator, Villa's desperately trying to convince Callie that he should be allowed to go over to Space City, arguing that Blake is too naive to be able to handle the Terra Nostra. Look, he was an Alpha grade on Earth. A highly privileged group, the Alphas. Last 5 minutes amongst the Delta service grades where I grew up, and it's the service grade where the Terra Nostra really operate. Without anesthetic, usually. Callie easily sees through Villa's thinly veiled attempt to go over and get drunk and high on all kinds of illegal substances that can only be found on Space City. However, that's when Avon remembers that Aurak can work the teleporter for him, allowing him to get over there. Except Aurak doesn't seem to be his normal self. With Gan on watch, Blake makes his proposal to the head of the Terra Nostra, who can be found on Space City, only for it to turn out to be our friend Largo. Coincidentally, and in an interesting callback, Largo was the one that gave Jenna the cargo that she was captured with that wound up having her branded as a smuggler and sentenced to life on Cygnus Alpha. Blake's hoping that Largo will act as a go-between between them and the head of the Terra Nostra, since no one actually knows who runs the organization, and will pay him handsomely for his services. Unfortunately, Largo decides to cut out the middleman and takes Blake captive, and intends to get all of his wealth from the Liberator. Callie arrives on the main deck looking for Villa, only to learn from Zen that he's been teleported over to Space City by Aurak in return for hiding Aurak somewhere on the Liberator. Also informing Callie that the one called Aurak does not have Liberator's best interests at heart before he's unexpectedly shut down, and the voice of Aurak emerges from the monitor telling Zen to be quiet. Callie proceeds to call up Villa and demand to know what he's up to.
Sightseeing. Mostly. And you should see the sights I've seen. Oh, no, probably shouldn't. I'll be back soon. Here, tell you what, I'll get you a gift. Anything you like. What would you like, Callie?
A necklace, Villa, made from your teeth.
However, when Callie goes to try and find Aurak, he proceeds to threaten to destroy the life support systems of the Liberator itself to prevent her from looking for him. That's a little out of character even by Aurak standards. Back over on Space City, we can see Gan and Avon are trapped in a cell with the two junkies. I wonder what they'll do. A pro keeps it simple. I imagine they'll kill us, you don't get simpler than that. Sorry, Avon. That makes all the difference. The two junkies are being kept here so they can be used as object lessons for the rest of the Terra Nostra. Largo's ascension comes with the minor caveat that he has to keep doing a good job, and if he ever fails, then he's probably going to die rather horribly. Blake calls up Callie and tells her to conclude the deal they're going to need to give the Terra Nostra all of the money they have. Fortunately, Blake didn't use his intelligence score as a dump stat, so tells Callie to make sure to have Zen be the one to bring it over. Callie realizing that Zen is incapable of leaving the ship, so it must be some sort of a trap. Largo is about ready to just shoot everybody since he's certain there's no way that anyone can bring over the rest of the wealth since they don't have additional shuttles. Blake claims, however, that they have multiple shuttles, not wanting to reveal the fact that they have a teleporter. So Largo finds out how many shuttles Blake claims they have, the number being 4, and asks Callie how many they have on board the Liberator. Callie, being smart, develops a signal with Blake using her telepathy to let her know when she's guessed the right number, so that she can give Largo the correct answer. Realizing that they're clearly in danger, she then proceeds to threaten the space station into giving her friends back to them, or else she'll blow them to smithereens. Even blowing up one of their defensive attack ships as a threat, off camera of course, so that we can skimp on the budget. Fortunately, Gan and Avon, with the help of the two junkies, are able to engineer a way to get the drop on the guy that comes to pick them up to deliver them to Largo to be tortured, allowing Avon and Gan to rescue Blake and for all of them to beat a hasty retreat off of Space City. And we even take the drug addicts along with us since they were mildly helpful to their escape attempt. Safely far enough away from Space City to not be a threat, the crew seems less than adequately concerned about the fact that Aurak has decided to go rogue and are more interested in searching for the source of Shadow, since that's where a bulk of the Terra Nostra's influence and wealth comes from, stating that they chose the wrong approach this time. We chose the wrong approach. I chose the wrong approach. Does it matter? Yes, it does. Alright, Avon, you were right and I was wrong. You said persuasion would work, and it didn't. So now we try force. Force? Oh, yes, of course. Lawmakers, lawbreakers, let us fight them all. Why not? Yeah, I don't think this is wholly intentional, but Blake's getting an interesting character makeover in this episode that may be setting up some stuff for later in the season. Fortunately, before the fight can escalate too far, Callie calls the bridge to let them know that she's still searching for Aurak but hasn't found it. Unfortunately, Aurak has found her and apparently manages to imprison her own psyche inside of his psyche. Yeah, it's kind of psychotropic and not very well explained even in the episode. Back over at Space City, Largo's in conversation with his direct superior in the Terra Nostra while he's playing with his pet tarantula, I guess, letting his superior know that having all of his shadow stolen and letting Blake and his crew escape was totally intentional, since it's all part of his master plan to make the Terra Nostra stupid rich and prove that they can punish the Liberator where the Federation can't, since apparently one of his spies has been smuggled aboard the Liberator and is giving them regular updates. His immediate superior buys it, but reassures him that if he fails in this little plan, he is going to die very, very painfully. In a private aside with his immediate henchman, Largo admits that, yeah, that was pretty much all nonsense, since he didn't intend to get all of his shadows stolen, and that neither one of the drug addicts actually worked for him. But nevertheless, they are going to help him with his little predicament, implying whether they mean to or not, because of the shadow they took, they're already working for him. Meanwhile, aboard the Liberator, they're performing a chemical analysis on the Shadow to try and determine where it came from. So it turns out that Shadow's made largely from refined cactus juice from a special form of alien cactus called the Moon Disc, which were prized for their minor telepathy and their ability to move short distances to prevent them from being exposed to direct sunlight. Hence why it got its nickname Shadow. They stuck to the shadows. Unfortunately, the moon discs were rendered extinct by the over-harvesting of them by collectors, and apparently there's nowhere else in the galaxy they could have grown on except for their original home planet.
Listen to me. The spice must flow.
That has to be the source. The key to the Terra Nostra's power. If we control that, we control the Terra Nostra.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
I kind of started doing this bit as just a joke, but honestly, it seems like somebody was reading Frank Herbert's Dune while writing this script. I'm sorry. But now that they know where to find the source of all the shadow, they're gonna go blow it up. Though Avon does remark it's a little bit strange that the Federation hasn't figured this out either, especially since the president of the Federation said that Shadow was one of the greatest threats to the known universe. Over in the B-plot, Villa's able to find Callie and Aurak, but it seems that Callie is still not all there, surprisingly enough. With Callie safely stored in her quarters, they end up shutting Aurak down since it seems that it's having a bit of an operational malfunction, and until Avon can play around with it, there's not much they can really do without risking it possibly ticking over the ship. But at any rate, they have arrived above the desert planet, which is the source for Shadow.
The planet is Arrakis, also known as Dune.
Okay, I swear I'll stop now. So Largo's henchman has called up his immediate superior to let him know that, yes, they have figured out where they're going. Apparently, Largo has been lacing his shadow with a radioactive isotope, which makes it easy to track the people that have been taking it. Again, really bad idea to lace your drugs with radioactive isotopes, but whatever. Unfortunately, Largo's not going to be making any other dumb decisions because Largo has apparently failed and is now quite dead. Avon, Blake, and Callie, wearing their finest pirate attire, have teleported down to the middle of a rock quarry in England. Oh, I'm sorry, the strange desert planet that is the source of all of Shadow, to go try and look for it. While down there, they end up discovering some of the weird moon discs. And as they walk away, we can see that, yes, in fact, the moon discs do move on their own. That's kinda cool. Back up on the Liberator, Villa has left his post at the teleporter controls to go get something from the medical cabinet. To do that, he's turned Aurak back on, so if they need any help, he can turn on the teleporter for them. Really great idea, Villa. Just stellar. Now that Aurak's been turned on, it proceeds to taunt Callie's psyche that it has imprisoned, telling her that she is all alone, but giving her the option to escape by teleporting her down to the planet below, where she can die alone and isolated. Blake, Jenna, and Avon end up discovering a farm for the moon discs. Finding out that there are several nearby, their plan is to set up radio transmitters so they can pinpoint them from space and then blast them from orbit, thus removing the ability for them to mass-produce Shadow anymore. Back up on the Liberator, they're discussing Callie's insanity, assuming it must be due to the fact that she's finally snapped after years of not being able to use her telepathy with other telepaths. Unfortunately, during that conversation, Villa decides to try and turn Aurak off, only to receive a fairly nasty shock, the now almost demonic-sounding Aurak informing him that he will not terminate the bridgehead, and if he tries again, it will in fact try and kill him. Yeah, great plan, Villa, just great plan. After some time has passed, Aurak has decided that the bridgehead is now complete, and proceeds to start steering the Liberator for a collision course with the planet below. They're unable to do anything to stop it. In an attempt to try and save their lives, one of the two drug addicts tries to disconnect Aurak, but yeah, Aurak was not messing around and does in fact kill her outright with the electrical shock. Though I do like the fact that Villa's the one that stops her brother from trying to destroy Aurak and getting himself killed in the process. As all hope seems lost and they're headed for a collision course with the planet's atmosphere, we cut back to Callie, who is now surrounded by moon disks. With their help, she's able to break through the mental blocks that Aurak has put on her, and in confronting Aurak, we get a long-winded explanation of what's exactly going on. I'm going to give you the short version of everything pertinent, and then let Villa explain exactly what happened. Callie ends up teleporting away Aurak's control key, which lets them shut Aurak down without anyone dying, and the universe is saved whoop-de-doo. So you see, this thing tapped into Aurak's channels, sucked up all of its power, so it could come squirting through and swallow us all. The Plain Man's Guide to Alien Invasions. I mean, that is basically it. Apparently, Aurak's intelligence passes through a parallel dimension that can be affected by psychic entities. This particular one was using Aurak to build some sort of a psychic bridge between its reality and our reality. Then, by crashing the Liberator into the atmosphere of the planet, would create a large enough explosion to open a gateway between dimensions and allow it to pass through into ours, consuming all life in the known universe. I love how he's able to summarize that way better than I can. Fortunately, Avon installs a safety protocol to prevent that from ever happening again. Also, while down on the planet, Avon took a security card off of one of the guards guarding the farms where they grow the plants for Shadow, revealing that the guard works for the President of the Federation directly. So, in other words, the Federation is controlling both the illegal and the legal sides of the worlds. Yeah, that's just sneaky. Blake decides to take the remaining member of the two drug addicts back to Space City with the challenge that if he can start a revolution in the next 3 years, Blake will come and provide him with assistance. Though he does also allow him to be the one to push the button that blows up all of the farms for the Shadow on the planet below. But doesn't that also mean that you've now doomed the species to actual extinction? Whatever. That's the episode. So yeah, that's actually a really good episode. I kind of enjoy the fact that the moon disks are clearly influenced by the mysterious moving rocks of Death Valley. So this is a real thing that actually happens. If you want to look it up, just do a Google search. The short version is occasionally it'll rain just enough in this one particular area to cause a thin layer of ice to form. Then when the wind picks up, it causes the stones to slide about across the ice. Some of them can move as much as 200 feet. That is super cool! The moon discs themselves are pretty cool, and they do a really good job of making them seem alien and mysterious without really having a whole lot behind them. On retrospect, all of the flaws with Shadow stop being flaws when you realize it was designed by the Federation to maintain control of the criminal elements of the Federation. So, okay, I'll grant, I was being a little nitpicky there. The Terra Nostra clearly take influence from the real-world La Cosa Nostra or the Mafia, but I gotta say, I kind of found their inclusion interesting, but unfortunately seldom used in most of the later episodes, at least as far as I remember. So it's a little sad that this really cool idea only really showed up in one episode, and they didn't become a possible third antagonistic force for the Liberator to contend with, rather than it always being the Federation. The whole psychic entity from a parallel dimension thing with Aurak was interesting, but it really felt like it needed more of an episode to explain what was going on, because I watched the bloody episode and I still am lost. The two drug addicts were pretty interesting as far as seeing what other people in the universe are like besides Blake and his immediate fellow crew members. I mean, it's kind of nice to see what the dregs of society live like. But they really don't serve a whole lot of a purpose in the episode besides giving them the Shadow for the later conclusion, where we find out that the President of the Federation's using it to control people. But yeah, all in all, this episode is pretty awesome. Well, that's another episode down. On to our next episode. What can you expect? Well, we get inferior clones of both Travis and Blake. We get to see what an episode not focusing around Blake actually looks like. Long story. Also, we get to see the saddest escaped patient from Jim Henson's workshop. I'll hope to see you all for our next episode, episode 16, Weapon. Until next time, guys, see ya! Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying the Blake 7 reviews, and if you are, then I encourage you to go show your support over at the official Blake 7 YouTube channel. And in speaking of support, I do all of these reviews as well as my fan films and my costume tutorials for free. So if you want to give me a little bit of cash to show your support and appreciation, I have links to my Patreon page below, as well as any other requisite links you may need. Until next time, have fun!